Hey man, she's busy right now. She'll call you later.
Keep her, bro. She's your problem now.
I'm Nathan Castillo, 36 years old, and until about a month ago, I genuinely believed I had everything figured out. Stable career as a distribution logistics coordinator, a wife who seemed happy enough, and a best friend who was practically family. I was living proof that you can be completely clueless and still function like a normal human being. The kind of clueless that makes you wonder if ignorance actually is bliss or just really expensive stupidity with better marketing. My daily routine was predictable enough to set your watch by. Wake up at 6:30, stumble into the kitchen like an extra from a zombie film, make coffee strong enough to make your heart reconsider its life choices, and sit scrolling through my phone while Spotify played smooth jazz that made me feel like I had my life together. Spoiler, I absolutely did not. I worked at a medium-sized distribution company doing logistics coordination, which is basically a fancy way of saying I made sure boxes got from warehouse A to customer B without the universe collapsing. Thrilling stuff. The kind of job that makes people's eyes glaze over at parties when you try to explain what you actually do for 40 hours every week. My wife Lisa supposedly had this amazing career in public relations. And by PR, I mean she posted carefully filtered photos of avocado toast at overpriced brunch places and called it networking. Her Instagram bio literally read, "Building empires one latte at a time," which should have been my first massive red flag. But I was operating on the intelligence level of a golden retriever who thinks every stranger wants to be friends. So I missed it completely. She had this whole carefully curated aesthetic. Hair always perfectly styled, outfits that probably cost more than my car payment, and this bizarre habit of using corporate buzzwords like synergy and authentic connection in regular conversation. I thought it was just her work personality bleeding into home life. Turns out plenty of other things were bleeding into our life that I knew nothing about. We had this decent little house in the suburbs, nothing fancy, but it was ours. Well, technically the bank owned most of it, but we got to pretend we were responsible adults with equity and everything. We also had 2 cats, Professor Whiskers and Captain Fluff, who spent their days sleeping in sunbeams and knocking stuff off counters just to watch me suffer. I loved them anyway, because apparently I'm the type who enjoys being emotionally manipulated by creatures who can't even open their own food. Then there was Kevin, my college buddy, the guy who'd been my best friend for over a decade. He knew my Taco Bell order by heart, had a spare key to our place, and used it so frequently that our mail carrier probably assumed we were running some kind of progressive living situation. Kevin was that friend who showed up uninvited, raided your fridge, fixed your Wi-Fi when it inevitably died, and made himself so comfortable on your couch that you wondered if he actually paid rent anywhere else, or just rotated between friends' houses like some kind of freeloading nomad. He was funny, helpful, always around when you needed something, and apparently always around when you didn't need him too. But we'll get to that particular dumpster fire in a minute. I genuinely thought everything was fine. Better than fine, actually. I thought I'd somehow cracked the code to adult life. Decent job that covered the bills, wife who smiled at me over morning coffee, best friend who made me laugh until my sides hurt, and 2 cats who occasionally acknowledged my existence when their food bowls ran empty. What more could anyone reasonably want? Maybe I should have wanted my wife to actually be in love with me instead of treating our marriage like a convenient roommate situation with tax benefits. But hey, hindsight is perfect vision, and apparently mine was legally blind. Lisa would come home from her networking event smelling like expensive perfume I definitely never bought her, talking about her incredible connections and how busy she was building her personal brand. I'd nod along like a supportive husband should, heat up some leftovers, and ask about her day. She'd give these vague responses about meetings and clients and strategy sessions, and I'd just accept it all. Why? Because I was operating under the dangerously stupid assumption that my wife wasn't a lying, cheating tornado of betrayal wrapped in designer athleisure clothing. Kevin would come over for gaming sessions about 3 times weekly. We'd sit in the living room with controllers in hand, talking trash about our gameplay, while Lisa supposedly worked late or attended another one of her mysterious book club meetings. Here's the thing that really kills me looking back. She hasn't finished reading an actual book since probably 2013. I'm talking about a woman who bought a Kindle, used it exactly twice to read celebrity gossip blogs, then turned it into an overpriced coaster. But suddenly she's in this book club that meets every single Thursday evening and sometimes Saturday afternoons too. The math wasn't adding up, but I was too busy being a trusting fool to pull out a calculator and actually check the numbers. Looking back now with the crystal clear 2020 vision of someone who's been metaphorically punched in the face by reality, I can see all the warning signs I completely missed. The way Lisa's laugh sounded totally different around Kevin, lighter and more genuine, like she was actually enjoying herself instead of just tolerating my presence out of marital obligation. The inside jokes that I definitely wasn't inside of. The way she'd volunteer Kevin to help with random household projects that I was perfectly capable of handling myself. Oh, Nathan, you're so swamped with work. Let's just ask Kevin to fix that leaky faucet. Yeah, turns out he was fixing way more than just the plumbing. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. The conference in Chicago was your standard October nightmare. Cold, gray, depressing in that special way that makes you seriously question your life choices. I was there representing our company at a logistics industry conference, which is exactly as exciting as it sounds. Picture a massive hotel ballroom packed with middle-aged guys in wrinkled business casual, discussing supply chain optimization over stale coffee and sad croissants that had the texture of cardboard that had been left out in the rain. I sat through 8 solid hours of PowerPoint presentations that could have easily been emails, shook hands with dozens of people whose names I forgot immediately, and collected enough promotional pens to supply an entire elementary school. This was my life. This was what I'd worked toward for years, living the absolute dream. The hotel they'd booked was one of those generic business places that all look identical. Beige walls everywhere, abstract art that looked like someone had sneezed paint onto a canvas, and a lobby that smelled like industrial cleaning products mixed with shattered dreams. My room was on the 14th floor overlooking a parking lot because apparently the universe has a sense of humor, and it's not a particularly good one. The bed was surprisingly decent, though. I'll give them that. Those crisp white hotel sheets that make you feel fancy, even though you're just some regular guy from the suburbs who still gets excited about free continental breakfast. It was around 12:30 when I finally escaped that uncomfortable conference room chair and made it back to my room. I had that specific kind of exhausted where your body is completely tired, but your brain absolutely refuses to shut up, replaying every awkward small talk conversation and reminding you of all the stupid things you probably said that sounded way cooler in your head than they did out loud. I'd texted Lisa earlier that evening. Just a simple, conference is boring, miss you kind of message. The kind of text a devoted husband sends. She'd responded with just a thumbs up emoji. Nothing else, not miss you too, or can't wait for you to get home, or even sorry your day sucked. Just a thumbs up like I was some coworker who'd sent her a calendar reminder about a meeting nobody wanted to attend. I should have recognized something was seriously wrong right then, but instead, I told myself she was probably buried in work stuff, maybe dealing with some demanding client or putting out whatever PR fire had erupted. That's what I did best, apparently. Made excuses, filled in all the gaps with optimistic narratives that made me feel better about the growing distance between us. Gold medal in mental gymnastics, folks. I could have competed professionally. I took a shower that lasted way longer than necessary because the water pressure was surprisingly excellent. And hotel showers always feel like a mini vacation from your regular shower, even though you're literally just washing yourself in a different geographical location. Logic has nothing to do with it. I put on the complimentary bathrobe because when you're paying $200 per night, you're absolutely going to use every single amenity they provide, and scrolled through my phone for a while. Instagram was full of Lisa's latest post. A photo of her coffee cup positioned next to her laptop with some caption about grinding and building empires. 43 likes already. I added mine because that's what supportive husbands do, even when they're sitting alone in a depressing hotel room, wondering why their wife can't text more than a single emoji. Around 1 a.m, I was lying in bed watching some late-night talk show that wasn't funny enough to keep me awake, but wasn't boring enough to actually put me to sleep. You know that weird limbo state where you're just existing in some half-conscious fog? That's exactly where I was. Then suddenly I got hit with this massive wave of homesickness that felt completely ridiculous for a 36-year-old man. I missed my own bed with the memory foam topper. I missed the cats walking across my face at 3 a.m. demanding food. I even missed Lisa's ice-cold feet touching my legs in the middle of the night, which I usually complained about but would have genuinely welcomed right then. So I did what any devoted, slightly pathetic husband would do. I called her, just to hear her voice, say goodnight, maybe have an actual conversation that didn't involve emojis or 3-word responses. The phone rang once and I smiled to myself, thinking she'd probably answer all groggy and adorable, tell me she was half asleep and missed me too. The phone rang twice, and I was already planning exactly what I'd say. Something sweet, but not too sappy, because I had a reputation to maintain even with my own wife. Then someone answered. But it absolutely was not Lisa. "Hey man, she's busy right now. She'll call you later." Kevin's voice hit me like a freight train loaded with red flags and pure audacity. My brain literally short-circuited trying to process what I was hearing. Kevin, my best friend Kevin, the guy I'd known since college, answering my wife's phone at 1 o'clock in the morning, the same Kevin who supposedly had his own apartment clear across town, his own life, his own cell phone. What possible reason could he have for answering Lisa's phone at 1 in the morning? Unless... No, wait, hold on. There had to be some reasonable explanation here. Maybe she'd left her phone at his place earlier in the day. Maybe they were hanging out in some group setting and he grabbed it by mistake. Maybe I was having a stress-induced hallucination brought on by consuming too many terrible conference croissants. "Kevin?" I managed to choke out, my voice sounding weird and distant like it was coming from someone else's body entirely. My heart was doing this thing where it felt like it was actively trying to escape through my rib cage, fight or flight response kicking in hard. Except I was lying in a hotel bed 14 floors up with absolutely nowhere to run and nothing to fight except the growing realization that I was a complete and total moron. And then I heard it. That laugh. Lisa's laugh, unmistakable and crystal clear in the background. Not just any laugh either. It was that genuine, carefree, actually amused laugh that I used to hear all the time back when we first started dating. The laugh she made when I tried to cook dinner and inevitably set off the smoke alarm. The laugh that I hadn't heard directed at anything I'd said or done in at least a year, maybe even longer than that. That laugh was happening in Kevin's presence at 1 in the morning while I was sitting alone in Chicago, thinking about how much I missed her. The pieces fell into place with all the subtle grace of a grand piano being dropped from a skyscraper, the late nights, the book club that wasn't really a book club, the inside jokes, Kevin's constant presence in our house like he lived there, Lisa's expensive new perfume, the way she'd been emotionally distant but kept claiming she was just stressed about work projects, that thumbs-up emoji that made me feel like a stranger instead of a husband. All of it, every single thing I'd rationalized and explained away suddenly made perfect, horrible, crystal-clear sense. I could have screamed. I could have cried. I could have thrown my phone across the room and watched it shatter against that ugly, abstract art on the wall. I could have stayed on the line demanding explanations, begging for this to be something other than what it obviously was, making a complete fool of myself while they scrambled to come up with some believable lie. But instead, something really weird happened. I got calm. Really, really calm. Like supernaturally calm. The kind of calm that probably worried the part of my brain that's supposed to handle normal human emotional responses. I took a deep breath, stared at the popcorn ceiling of my generic hotel room, and said the only thing that felt absolutely right in that moment. "Keep her, bro. She's your problem now." Then I hung up. The silence that followed was absolutely gorgeous. No crying, no panicking, no dramatic emotional outbursts. Just me lying in a hotel bed, staring at the ceiling like I was the star of some sad insurance commercial about life's unexpected plot twists. My phone started ringing immediately, Kevin's name flashing on the screen over and over. I watched it ring until it went to voicemail, then turned the phone off completely. And you know what? I slept like a baby. Best sleep I'd had in months, maybe years. I woke up the next morning, genuinely expecting to feel like someone had ripped my chest open and replaced my heart with a garbage disposal full of broken glass and regret. You know, the standard post-betrayal emotional package that comes with discovering your wife is basically auditioning for some reality show about cheaters. But instead, I felt fine. Actually, better than fine. I felt like I just had the best night's sleep in recent memory, which was deeply concerning because, according to every romantic comedy and therapy podcast I'd ever accidentally listened to, I should have been a sobbing mess ordering room service ice cream at 4 in the morning while listening to Adele on repeat and questioning my entire existence. The morning sunlight was streaming through those hotel curtains that never quite close all the way, and I just laid there for a minute taking inventory of my emotional state, like a mechanic checking under the hood of a car. Sadness? Nope, not really there. Anger? Maybe a little, but it was more of a background simmer than a full rolling boil. Soul-crushing despair? Surprisingly absent from the equation. What I felt most was relieved and hungry, mostly hungry if I'm being completely honest. I checked my phone after turning it back on. 37 missed calls, 14 from Kevin, 23 from Lisa. Apparently, my mother had called too, which meant someone had already started the drama chain reaction through our social circle. I turned the phone back off. Whatever nuclear fallout was happening back home could definitely wait until after I'd properly caffeinated and consumed an irresponsible amount of carbohydrates. The hotel breakfast buffet was calling my name like a siren song, except instead of luring sailors to their doom, it was luring a recently betrayed logistics coordinator to processed meats and questionable scrambled eggs. I got dressed in yesterday's conference outfit because I'd packed like an optimistic idiot who thought he'd be returning home to a loving wife instead of a Greek tragedy written by someone with a genuinely sick sense of humor. The breakfast area was absolutely packed with conference attendees, all looking various degrees of hungover and professionally miserable. I recognized a few faces from yesterday's presentation on optimizing warehouse efficiency through artificial intelligence, but I didn't feel like making small talk with anyone. I was a man on a mission, and that mission was eating my feelings in a socially acceptable public setting. I loaded up my plate like I was genuinely preparing for the apocalypse. Scrambled eggs, bacon, extra bacon, because if your wife is cheating on you with your best friend, you absolutely deserve all the bacon. Sausage links, hash browns, a waffle that I completely drowned in syrup, and a cinnamon roll the size of my head. Zero shame. Maximum carbohydrates. The breakfast attendant, a sweet older lady named Patricia, according to her name tag, raised her eyebrows at my overflowing plate. "Rough night, honey?" she asked with a kind of knowing sympathy that suggested she'd witnessed her fair share of sad business travelers over the years. "You could definitely say that," I replied, grabbing a cup of coffee that could probably strip paint off walls. "But this breakfast is making it significantly better." "That's the spirit," Patricia said, patting my shoulder like she was my honorary grandmother. "Whatever's bothering you, bacon makes everything better." I wanted to tell her that bacon, while absolutely delicious, probably couldn't fix infidelity. But she seemed so confident in the healing properties of processed pork products that I didn't want to completely ruin her worldview. So I just smiled, thanked her genuinely, and found a table in the corner where I could eat in peace and contemplate the smoking ruins of my marriage. The bacon was actually pretty decent for hotel food. Crispy, not too greasy, clearly cooked by someone who understood that limp bacon is a crime against breakfast everywhere. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I turned it back on because avoiding reality only works for so long. And eventually I was an adult who had to face consequences, even if those consequences were my wife's panicked text messages trying to do damage control. The message read, "Sorry phone died, LOL." That was it. That was her opening move in what should have been the most important conversation of our entire marriage. Not, "I can explain what happened." Not, "We seriously need to talk." Not even a basic, "I'm sorry you had to find out this way." Just, "Sorry phone died, LOL," with a lowercase LOL, like this was some minor technical inconvenience instead of a relationship-ending betrayal that had just blown up our entire lives. The audacity was almost impressive. Almost. I stared at that message for a solid minute, watching the three dots appear and disappear as she typed and deleted, probably trying to figure out how to spin the situation into something that didn't make her look like the villain in her own romantic disaster movie. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, and about 17 different responses ran through my head, ranging from angry multi-paragraph essays to single emoji reactions that would convey my disappointment without giving her the satisfaction of knowing she'd actually hurt me. But then something clicked in my brain. Some part of me that had apparently been waiting for permission to stop being a pushover finally woke up and said, "You know what? We're going to have some fun with this situation." So I typed back, "No worries. Hope the funeral for your phone went well." Short, simple, sarcastic enough to let her know that I definitely knew what was actually going on, but not desperate enough to give her ammunition or make me look pathetic. I hit send and immediately felt better, like I'd just won the first round of a game I didn't even know I was playing. Her response came back almost immediately. "What? Eli, can we talk about this? I know you're upset, but let me explain. It's not what you think." The messages kept coming rapidly, each one more desperate and panicked than the last, and I just sat there eating my bacon and watching her digital panic with the detached interest of someone observing a train wreck from a completely safe distance. That's when I realized something important. I wasn't going to scream or beg for explanations. I wasn't going to show up at home demanding answers or fighting desperately for a marriage that she'd already set on fire and roasted marshmallows over while laughing. Nope, I was going to be strategic about this whole thing. Cold, calculated, and absolutely petty in the most satisfying way humanly possible. When I returned home from Chicago on Thursday afternoon, it felt appropriately anticlimactic for someone whose entire life had just been revealed as an elaborate joke at his expense. Lisa was at work when I got there, which was absolutely perfect because it gave me time to do what any rational person would do: turn into a discount detective with a vendetta and way too much free time on his hands. I dropped my suitcase in the bedroom and immediately started looking around our house with completely fresh eyes. The eyes of someone who'd been played for a fool and was determined to figure out exactly how long this circus had been performing. I started in the obvious place, Lisa's home office, which was really just a corner of our second bedroom that she'd claimed with a desk from IKEA and a corkboard covered in motivational quotes about boss babes and crushing goals. Her planner was sitting right there, pink leather bound with gold edges, the kind of overpriced organizational tool that costs $40 and makes you feel like you have your life together even when you absolutely don't. I flipped it open, scanning through her color-coded schedule. Green for work meetings, blue for personal appointments, pink for what do you know? Book club in pink ink. Every single Thursday evening for the past 4 months. Sometimes Saturday afternoons too. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures of the pages, building my case like I was preparing for the trial of the century. But here's where it got really interesting. I cross-referenced her book club schedule with her Instagram posts, because if there's one thing Lisa couldn't resist, it was documenting every single moment of her life for public consumption and validation. And wouldn't you know it? On several of those Thursday book club nights, she posted photos from locations that were definitely not book clubs. Unless book clubs had suddenly started meeting at sports bars and movie theaters, which seemed unlikely. One photo showed her holding a craft beer with the caption, "Needed this after a long week," timestamped at 8:30 on a Thursday that was supposedly book club night. Another showed her at what looked like someone's backyard, a fire pit visible in the background, tagged with Kevin and 3 other people I vaguely recognized from his social circle. The pieces were coming together like the world's most depressing jigsaw puzzle. I moved on to the receipts next because apparently I decided to embrace every single cliché of the suspicious spouse investigation playbook. Lisa kept a folder of receipts for tax purposes, weirdly meticulous about that specific area of her life. Probably the only area where she actually cared about organization and honesty. I started going through them month by month, and I hit the absolute jackpot of incriminating evidence. Dinner for 2 at Marco's, that expensive Italian place downtown. $78 on a Wednesday night when I was working late at the office. Hotel room at the Riverside Inn, $160 on a Saturday when she'd told me she was attending a PR conference in Milwaukee. Multiple purchases at Victoria's Secret, totaling hundreds of dollars, which would have been exciting if I'd ever actually seen any of the lingerie she'd apparently been buying. I hadn't received any kind of sexy surprise in probably 6 months or longer, so either she was hoarding fancy underwear like some kind of dragon with a very specific treasure preference, or someone else was definitely getting the private fashion show. My personal favorite discovery was a receipt from a sporting goods store for a tent and camping supplies, totaling $342. Lisa absolutely hated camping with a burning passion. Hated it. I'd tried to take her camping once during our second year of marriage, and she'd lasted exactly 4 hours before demanding we pack everything up and find the nearest hotel because nature is disgusting, and bugs are basically a hate crime. But apparently, she'd overcome her deep-seated fear of the outdoors when Kevin suggested a camping trip to his family's lake property. How convenient. How absolutely perfectly convenient. Then I did something I'm not particularly proud of, but also have zero regrets about. I checked our cat's Instagram account. Yes, our cats had their own Instagram because Lisa had started it about a year ago as a fun project to build content creation skills, which apparently meant posting photos of Professor Whiskers and Captain Fluff with captions written from their perspective. It was as ridiculous as it sounds, but somehow it had gained 3,000 followers who genuinely enjoyed watching our cats do absolutely nothing productive. I scrolled through the recent posts, and there it was. Photographic evidence that even our pets were somehow involved in this betrayal. 2 posts from the past month clearly showed the cats at Kevin's apartment. One caption read, Professor Whiskers visiting Uncle Kevin's bachelor pad. Hash cats? Off Instagram hash. Cat life? Hash adventure time. Uncle Kevin, like he was actual family. Like he hadn't been systematically destroying our family from the inside like some kind of friendship termite. The location tags confirmed everything. Kevin's exact address, which I knew perfectly because I'd helped him move into that apartment 2 years ago, carried his couch up 3 flights of stairs like a good friend. Even bought him a housewarming gift basket from Trader Joe's, with all those fancy cheeses he specifically liked. I'd literally contributed to creating the love nest where my wife was apparently spending her Thursday evenings instead of reading books she had absolutely no intention of finishing. I took screenshots of absolutely everything. Every Instagram post, every receipt, every suspicious calendar entry. I created a folder on my laptop and saved it all. When Lisa came home that evening, she was clearly nervous, her smile forced and brittle around the edges. "Hey," she said cautiously. "How was Chicago?" I looked up from my laptop and smiled back, channeling every ounce of fake normalcy I could possibly muster. "Boring conference stuff. Same old, same old. How was your week?" She visibly relaxed, probably thinking she'd dodged a bullet. "Oh, you know, busy with work projects, the usual stuff." "Book club last night?" I asked innocently. She froze for just a microsecond, barely noticeable if you weren't specifically looking for it. "Yeah, it was good. We're reading this really interesting memoir." "Cool. What's it about?" Watch her squirm. Watch her try to remember which specific lie she'd told me. "It's about a woman who travels across America finding herself. Very inspiring stuff." "Sounds great," I replied, turning back to my laptop. "You should tell me more about it sometime." I could feel her watching me, trying desperately to figure out if I knew, if I suspected anything, if she needed to start preparing her defense strategy. But I just kept my eyes on the screen, playing the picture of a trusting, oblivious husband. Game on, Lisa. Game absolutely on. The next few days were like living in some really bad stage production where everyone had completely forgotten their lines, but was committed to improvising through the awkwardness anyway. Lisa was trying way too hard to act normal, which ironically made everything feel completely abnormal. She was being overly affectionate in that performative way that people do when they're trying to convince themselves they're not terrible human beings. Sunday morning, she made pancakes, actually made them from scratch, which was suspicious since her cooking abilities peaked at assembling cheese and crackers on a board. Kevin texted that evening, "Hey man, you good? Haven't heard from you in a while." The absolute audacity. I went with, "All good, bro. Been busy with work stuff." Let him wonder. Let him stress about whether I actually knew what was going on. That night after Lisa fell asleep, I opened my laptop and started planning. This wasn't going to be simple revenge. Revenge was emotional and stupid and made you look like the bad guy. This was going to be consequences. Strategic, calculated consequences. Kevin worked in real estate development, same general industry as me, but different company. We'd collaborated on several deals over the years, shared client referrals, even discussed partnering on an investment property once upon a time when I thought he was actually my friend and not a backstabbing opportunist. I pulled up county property records, all completely public information, perfectly legal to access. There it was, one lake cabin purchased 6 months ago for $280,000. I started digging deeper into the transaction details and found some interesting discrepancies in the paperwork. Nothing major, just little things that someone with my professional background might notice. Things that, if brought to the right people's attention, could cause some very uncomfortable questions. Monday morning, I showed up to work and Carmen Rodriguez knocked on my office door holding 2 cups of coffee. Carmen was our firm's legal assistant, though calling her just an assistant was insulting. She handled contracts, liaised with lawyers, knew more about real estate law than most of the actual agents, and had this uncanny ability to smell drama from 3 floors away. "You look like someone planning either a homicide or a career change," she said, inviting herself in and putting 1 coffee on my desk. "And since you brought lunch from home instead of buying your usual sandwich from the deli, I'm guessing it's the homicide." I laughed, despite everything. Carmen had this way of cutting through nonsense with surgical precision, which was exactly why I needed her right now. Hypothetically, I started carefully, if someone discovered their spouse was romantically involved with a mutual friend who happened to work in a related industry and had made some potentially questionable business decisions. "Are we talking about Kevin?" she interrupted bluntly. "I've seen the way he looks at Lisa at company events. Also, he has the subtlety of a car alarm at 3 in the morning. I've been waiting for you to figure this out for like 6 months. 6 months. She'd known for 6 months. So what are we doing? Carmen asked, pulling out her phone. And please tell me it's something creative. I filled her in on everything. The midnight phone call from Chicago, the receipts, the Instagram posts documenting the lies, the lake cabin purchase that Kevin had been so proud of. Carmen listened with the intense focus of a prosecutor building a case. What's the end game? She asked when I finished. What's the difference between scorched earth and strategic dismantling? Scorched earth is loud, messy, satisfying in the short term, but potentially damaging to you long term. Strategic dismantling is surgical, methodical. Everything looks like natural consequences, and you come out looking like the completely innocent party. Strategic dismantling, then. I pulled up the property records on Kevin's cabin. After examining them carefully, Carmen let out a low whistle. This LLC registration is a complete mess. He's got it registered in Wisconsin, but the actual property is in Minnesota, which means he's probably screwing up his tax obligations in at least one state, possibly both. Is that illegal? It's not illegal to be stupid, but it is very illegal to not pay the correct taxes. And if someone were to anonymously report some discrepancies to the respective state revenue departments, she trailed off meaningfully. Carmen got to work immediately. By 10 o'clock that morning, the first domino fell. My phone rang showing Trevor Morrison, one of Kevin's biggest clients. Nathan, hey, quick question. You still close with Kevin? I'm hearing some weird stuff about property fraud issues and tax discrepancies. I've got a major investment lined up with him, but if there's smoke here, I need to know before I hand over a check. Wow, that's crazy, I said, keeping my voice carefully neutral. I mean, Kevin's always been pretty solid as far as I know, but honestly, if you're hearing concerns about legal compliance, you might want your lawyer to take a closer look at everything before you commit. Better safe than sorry, right? It wasn't a lie. Just reasonable professional advice. Trevor pulled out of the Riverside deal that same day. Carmen appeared in my doorway. Kevin's client just backed out. It's all over the real estate chat groups. The Peterson Group is launching a full background check on him now. The next 2 weeks were like watching a slow-motion car crash. Lisa's administrative leave turned into a full investigation. Kevin lost not just the Peterson Group, but 3 other major clients. Carmen kept me updated with regular texts. Peterson Group officially pulled out. Wisconsin Revenue Department opened an official investigation into his LLC. Claire's breakdown hit on a Tuesday night. They're firing me. They're terminating my employment immediately for breach of confidentiality agreements. That's rough. Are you, though? You seem fine. Better than fine. You seem like you're having the time of your life while everything I've worked for falls apart. You made your choices, Lisa. These are the consequences. I didn't fire you. But you knew about Kevin and me, and instead of talking to me, you decided to destroy both our lives. I destroyed your lives? I stood up, calm. Lisa, I found out my wife was cheating when my best friend answered her phone at 1 a.m. You destroyed your own life. I just stopped participating in the cover-up. It just happened. You were always working, always distracted. And you decided that was good enough reason to blow up our marriage. You want forgiveness? You never even apologized. You just expected me to pretend nothing happened. She collapsed, sobbing. Kevin lost his job. He's losing the cabin. His life is ruined. My life is ruined. There's nothing to explain, Lisa. You made your choices. I made mine. We're done here. I went upstairs and slept better than I had in years. 2 weeks later, life had transformed completely. I'd moved Lisa's belongings to the guest bedroom. She stayed at her sister's most nights. I started going to the gym regularly, lost 10 pounds without trying. Work became enjoyable without constant anxiety. Carmen and I started a side business converting an old warehouse into a community center. I traveled on weekends, hiking trails, and visiting national parks. I adopted another cat named Shadow, who fit perfectly with Professor Whiskers and Captain Fluff. One Tuesday, grabbing coffee downtown, I saw her. Lisa sat alone at a corner table, staring into half-empty coffee. She'd lost weight, clothes hanging loose, hair in a simple ponytail instead of perfectly styled. She looked up, saw me. "Do you hate me?" I thought about it, really searched for anger or bitterness, but they weren't there anymore, replaced by indifference and contentment. I shook my head. Nah, hate requires effort. She looked like she wanted to say more. I didn't wait. The barista called my name. "Nathan," she called as I headed out. "I'm glad you're doing well." "Thanks," I said over my shoulder, meaning it. Not because I cared about her approval, but because it was genuinely true. Outside, it started raining, that soft spring rain that washes everything clean. I walked to my car whistling, letting rain hit my face, thinking about how different this moment was from that night in Chicago. Some storms don't break you. They just wash away the stupidity. I drove home to my cats, my business plans, my life built from wreckage that wasn't even mine. And for the first time in years, I felt completely, genuinely free.